Okay, see if I can do this whole thing blindfolded. You know, for a hot second there, I did actually consider it, but no, not gonna do that. Okay, Bird Box. So, yeah, this was one I wasn't planning to cover. Not that it looked bad, it looked fine. It's just that, horror I'm really kind of picky about. I need to kind of be in the right mood. But a surprising number of people kept asking me, you gonna see it, you gonna review it, you gonna talk about it? And I decided based off that alone to check it out. I know it did well in terms of being very heavily viewed. I didn't look into how people actually felt about it in terms of whether or not response was generally positive. And I actually want to give props to you guys for that too, because all the people who asked me are you going to review it? None of them really clearly indicated whether the reason they wanted me to review it was because they thought I would like it or because they wanted to see me go off on one over it. So, good on you guys for playing that close to the vest. So, I have now seen it, and it's quite good. I knew a little bit about the premise, but I was quite surprised how good this was. Just the whole thing, the way it's presented, the acting, the concepts, the execution. I'm not gonna lie, I flat out choked up at a couple of points. I may or may not mention specifically what those were towards the back end. I'm gonna try to avoid spoilers for as long as I can. I will have to get into spoilers eventually because, I gotta talk about some stuff that's a little bit more spoilery. So, I'll actually kind of be able to get my biggest complaint about the thing kind of out of the way, which is I'm not sure how much the structure of it actually helps the narrative. And by that I mean, it's this whole situation where something has occurred that is impacting the populace, and people are kind of going nuts and taking their own lives, and the remaining people are trying to avoid what it is that has happened. But it jumps back and forth between when it sort of first hits and the immediate sort of days and weeks after that, and then 5 years later with Sandra Bullock's character trying, along with two small children, trying to reach a safe area. And it's not a bad structure, I just don't know how much it actually helped the story to be jumping back and forth as much as it did and in the way that it did. I might have gone with it better if we hadn't started on the 5 years later thing. If that hadn't been the first thing that I saw, which meant that every time we went back, I'm looking around at all these, other survivors and going, well, I assume you're all dead. And it's kind of a shame because I actually think that by and large that chronologically the beginning stuff is, I think it's the strongest material that the film has. But it kind of gets the legs cut out from under it a little bit because you already know this isn't going to turn out well. Now that said, it doesn't completely take the wind out of the sails because it does have a really good cast and the interactions are good and it's surprisingly well written and avoids some pretty serious stumbling blocks that were directly in front of it that it almost seemed like it was going to hit too. So that was kind of interesting. I'll get into those when I start getting a bit more into spoilers. I'm not in love with the structure of it. Again, it doesn't completely derail the thing. It doesn't make it suddenly not work. I feel like the specific ways in which the leaping back and forth happens and the points at which it happened and, which stretches we get for how long doesn't always flow especially well. There's especially sort of a weird kind of middle bridge bit where we've sort of done the 5 years ahead leap, but it's also before the part we actually started the movie at. So like there's a weird middle section that's comes in, I don't know, maybe a little more than half, maybe about 2/3 into the movie, and that was probably the one bit where it felt like a lull. It felt like an awkward, wait, we're disjointing out of time. Additionally, one more when we've already established like these two for more than half the runtime of the thing. So like but that's really the only complaint I'm gonna register on this, is that I feel like editing structure could have been tighter, and I feel inherently that there had to be a way to construct this film from the pieces that there are that would have it flow a little bit smoother than it does. Again, it's not awful. It works. It's functional, but I feel like at some points it was jarring, and I felt like some moments lost a little bit of their impact. So that's really my only complaint. Obviously, Sandra Bullock has the lead, and she does really well, and she kind of has a tough job because the character she's playing, Mallory, is a kind of an emotionally detached person, and we find that out actually very early on. Early on in the timeline of the series of scenes that come up in the film, because she does not go easy on these kids. She is blunt. She is insistent. She does not leave room for misinterpretation. She is very clear with them about the danger they are going to face, and she does not mince words with them. And then additionally, we flash back to before everything went to hell, and we see her with her sister, who she very obviously has a good rapport with, but the things that they talk about and the way they interact, it makes it very clear that her sister's probably about the only person that she has anything close to this kind of relationship with, and she just doesn't connect well with people. Not that like she comes across as a misanthrope, somebody like, I hate everybody. She just doesn't make those connections. And it's tough to take a character like that and have them not only have an arc that isn't just learning to trust people, or some trite crap like that, but also, is able to be relatable. And she does really good work in this. The whole cast is good. There are only a few other people who I actually recognized. I forget the guy's name, but the guy who was Rod in Get Out, he's in it. John Malkovich, of course. So it is quite a good cast, and they do a lot to elevate what could have, especially I would say actually Malkovich, his character towed right up to the line of I maybe can't quite stand you, except that especially with some of the stuff that happens towards the very end, the relevance and why he's there and why things panned out specifically in terms of his storyline actually contributed to the moments that choked me up later on. I think I'm going to start getting into more specifics. So, yeah. Oh, the one other thing before I get into specifics, I know some people have made a comparison between this and A Quiet Place, and they're really doing incredibly different things. I mean, they're slightly similar on a very bare bones conceptual level insofar as they both deal with a post-apocalypse horror survival situation where humans are deprived of something that they are used to having, that they themselves do. In the case of A Quiet Place, it's speaking and making any noise, and in the case of Bird Box, it's sight. It's being able to safely just look around, because if you see whatever it is that's causing this, you will lose your mind, and you will kill yourself. So there's at its core, there's a slightly similar conceit, but the films are doing very different things structurally, and the arc for Mallory is very different for what's going on with the characters in A Quiet Place. So I actually wouldn't really ever think to compare the two under normal circumstances. So that being said, now I'm going to start to get into spoilers a little bit. First thing, I really love that we never see whatever these things were. Because of some of the drawings that we see, we do get hints at sort of the general nature of it. But first of all, I like that none of the pictures look like they're of the same thing. They're like in a similar vein, but like, well, that is something different from that. So, and there's a very Lovecraftian vibe to those drawings. I like that that's all we get, though. Because I think trying to show us, honestly, I think would have just flat out killed the movie. And even trying to give an explanation also would have undermined it. Because in a way, again, core concept, it's not dissimilar from The Happening. The M. Night Shyamalan movie that was not very good at all. And there were a lot of things wrong with The Happening and a lot of reasons why that movie didn't work. But one of the things that didn't help was that the eventual reveal of what it was that was causing people to go crazy and kill themselves, which was treated like a big revelation and a twist, and here's the reason why, was really dumb and really laughable. So I think, and since this isn't telling a story really about the phenomena, it's telling a story about the people, it doesn't matter where these things came from or what they are or what their deal is. It honestly does not matter. So they don't even dwell on it. Good call. I think there were a lot of just good choices being made. And I don't know how much of that to credit to the movie, because I haven't read the novel that this is based off of. So most of these good decisions I'm talking about might just be reflective of a really good book. I don't know. But as I said, in terms of the acting, so I want to touch back on John Malkovich's character. So I'm like, okay, well, John Malkovich, cool. I mean, I like him, usually. And his character was the self-serving jerk. There's one of these, like, in almost every, there's a group trying to survive story. There's one guy who, like, wants to not help anybody else and, cut his losses and doesn't give a crap, and he's a jerk. I mean, that's the long and short of it. He's a jerk. And normally those characters really tend to bug me. And he came very close, but I think in a lot of ways it was saved by the scene that he has with Mallory after they've gone to the grocery store and stocked up. And, she tells him about her father and how he reminds her of him, which is not a compliment coming from her. And I also like, before they let someone in who was outside and needed help, and which he objected to. And when they got to the supermarket, they've got all this stuff, and his answer was like, let's just barricade and stick it out here. Of course, there were still like 3 or 4 people back at his house who were waiting for them to come back with supplies. And he's sitting there going, you can't give me a logical or legal or rational argument as to why we shouldn't just stay here. And Mallory looks at him and goes, well, I'm going to change the word she used, but it's like, but we're not jerks. That's why we're not going to do that. And not only Malkovich's performance helped save it from being too bad in a little bit, but the other thing is that the first moment that choked me up and it caught me off guard, it's towards the tail end, and they had set this up, and that this is one of the points where the structure actually worked well and worked in the thing's favor, because they set this up, then they broke from it by flashing back, and then they came back to it, which is that they're in the boat and they're headed for the rapids, and Mallory knows that the rapids are dangerous and really somebody should be looking, and that means that somebody is going to be at risk, and if she can't be the one to look, because if she's affected and she dies, these kids are toast. Like, there's no way that they're going to survive on their own. And she says, one of you is going to have to look. And the boy, tries to say, I'll do it. And she goes, no, I'll decide who's going to do it. And by this point, we had learned that the boy is actually her child, her biological child, and the girl is not. And knowing everything that had been set up about her before, like seeing her argue with, I guess it was Tom, the other guy, about how to treat these kids and how she rationalizes being as cold with them as she is, and the fact that she hadn't even given them names, as all being for their benefit, and then coming down to this moment, basically a Sophie's Choice moment. And it cuts away from that. It goes into a flashback. I don't even remember what it was. But it leaves you hanging on that, with this idea that she is going to put one of these children's lives at absolute risk for the sake of saving the other one. Now, it's not a guarantee that whatever child looks is going to die, but it is a very strong possibility. And from a rational, how many people can survive argument, that would be the smart thing to do. But when we come back to the continuation of this scene, she kind of takes a moment and she goes, no, nobody's going to look. Because she made the decision, thinking back on John Malkovich's character of Douglas, thinking back on Tom, thinking back on the people that she'd lost over the course of this, and I would imagine probably thinking back on her own father and her family, she makes the decision that she doesn't want to be that jerk, that maybe it would improve her odds of living, but she wouldn't be able to live with herself. And she's not going to do that. They either all make it or they all don't. And I'm sure some people could argue that that was a selfish decision, sparing herself the pain of making that choice. But it is her character arc. So whether you feel that that was ultimately a smart or a dumb thing that she decided to do, it is the arc of her character of recognizing that she has been and is very much in danger of becoming permanently John Malkovich's character of Douglas, or her father, or these people who she can't stand. She has become, and she, in the pinch moment, she has to make the decision to not be that, which is a decision that on paper may be a stupider decision. But that's the journey that she as a character is going through. And I was surprised how powerful that moment was, boosted by her performance, obviously. For the record, the other moment that choked me up was when we get to the very end, and it's the cheesier moment, which is when she actually does finally give these kids names. I was pretty impressed with this. Like, considering I knew nothing about the source material, considering I'm super picky with horror as a genre, Sandra Bullock can go either way for me as an actress. I think she's very talented, but she doesn't always work for me. I'd never heard of this director, or seen, or anything she's done. I was impressed and touched, which I wasn't expecting to be, not based off this premise. I was expecting to maybe be bummed out, but I wasn't expecting to be touched by a moment of a character who was willfully hard and cold, finally making the choice to soften. That was unexpected, and that was nice. I think I'll wrap it up there. Bird Box! Have you seen it? Well, goodness, was it safe for you to see it? You shouldn't have looked! But whatever your thoughts on it, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff you can do, because there's buttons and links, including one to the Patreon, Any support you're willing to give is helpful. There's also the address for my P.O. box, bunch of other links besides. Check them out if you want. If you don't, that is okay, because at the end of the day, you are the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.